A burst pipe? A dead water heater? The AC calling it quits? Who do you call? HomeServe is an easy way to handle unexpected home repairs with plans covering stuff basic homeowners insurance usually won't. Instead of scrambling for a contractor, you make one call to get the repair process started. Join the millions of customers who trust HomeServe right now. Go to homeserve.com/podcast for 50% less your first year. That's homeserve.com/podcast. Savings compared to renewal price void in Florida.
Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast, a space to pause, breathe, and come back to yourself, even in the middle of a full and busy life. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and in each episode, we explore mindfulness for real life, simple practices, reflections, tools to help you feel grounded, present, and connected to what matters most to you. So let's settle in and let's get centered. Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and I am so glad you are here. In this solo episode, we're exploring this theme that is so prevalent, I think, in everybody's life, to be honest, but I am seeing it with my clients, and so I thought I would talk about it out loud so that we're taking this kind of boogeyman feeling out of the closet and shining a light of awareness on it, because we know the gift of awareness. Once we see something, we then have the power of choice. So today we're going to talk about this feeling, this anxious feeling that so many of us feel of like, am I doing life right? Am I doing life right? And that sense of distrust and disconnection that can create a lot of anxiety and worry and overwhelm and spirals in the brain and disconnection and a desire to control, like all of these things that just come out when we create that sense of disconnection from ourselves. And there's a difference that we're going to talk about of getting curious, like, is this a right choice for me? And then this deeper question of like, am I doing this right? Where there tends to be some judgment and there tends to be this black and white thinking. So wherever you are listening to today's episode, you are going to walk away with so much awareness, so much insight, and I'm sure so many moments of like, yeah, I do that. And more importantly, some different ways to think about how we can meet ourselves in these moments to relieve some of this pressure, to create some more spaciousness, to build some more trust and confidence. So I'm so glad you are here, whether you're joining us on a walk, cooking in the kitchen, commuting, and let's get ready to get centered. I think some of us have this belief, like if you have everything, if you have your career and you have the relationships and you have a roof over your head and you have financial security and health, that you are going to be happy and content. But in this modern day world, when we're living in first world problems, that is not what typically happens. I see this around me with my clients, with my own friend circles, with just powerful, ambitious women in my life, that they have it all from the outside. They have the careers, they have the financial stability, they have the friends, they're traveling, they're smart, they're driven, they're successful, people admire them. And yet, when I connect with these people one-on-one, whether it's in a coaching space or not, what tends to come up is that underneath all of those boxes that are checked or those levels of satisfaction, there's still this lingering question of, am I doing life right? So I welcome you to pause with me and check in. Like, have you asked yourself that question? I know I've asked myself that question like probably a few times in the last few months. And we all carry around these timelines, and especially women, in your 20s, your 30s, your 35, your 40s, there's this kind of time stamp of where should I be at this point in my life? And I say the should intentionally. And if you've listened to my podcast before or worked with me, you know that the shoulds are a form of thinking traps. They're a way that our minds create these stories and constrictions on what life should look like, or what happiness should look like, or what fulfillment should look like, right? And so at these different time stamps in our mid 20s and 30s and 40s, there's this idea of like, I should have my own house. I should have my partner. I should have one kid by now, or two kids, or I should be living my life purpose, or I should feel healthier in my body, or I should feel more financially secure. And even though intellectually we might recognize, oh, these are social norms, right? These are conditioned beliefs that at the age of 30, I should be married. At the age of 35, I should have two kids and a dog. So we might see the story that society tells us, but we can sometimes get easily blinded to how those norms actually shape and evaluate our own perception of self. And then we create these next level stories of like, okay, well, once I get that promotion, I'm going to stop worrying about X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to finally feel content. I'm going to finally feel happy. Or once I find that partner, I'm going to finally feel secure and like I'm on the right path. Or once I buy that house, I'm going to finally feel like my family's complete, or that I have achieved the American dream. So as we're navigating this question of like, am I doing life right? We think that we need to do the next thing, achieve the next thing to remove the uncertainty. Like once I get that new job that's higher paying, it's going to remove the uncertainty that I'm not going to feel financially secure, and I'm going to finally feel like I'm on my right path because I'm going to have a little bit more money in my bank account. Or once I find that partner, I'm going to know I'm living my right life, and it removes this uncertainty and anxiety about what the future holds because I have my person and that's all that matters, and I'm starting my family. But once we achieve these next stepping stones, so to say, it doesn't remove this question of, am I on the right path? We might feel content for a little bit. It's kind of like chasing that dopamine that I talked about a few weeks ago on the Center in the City podcast. But it doesn't necessarily connect us to the inner work that we all need to have up to date, right? Kind of like a software system up to date so that it's actually in alignment with the external life we're living. And a lot of the times it's hard for us to tune inwards to connect to our internal software system because we're competing with these various voices in our mind, these various voices of societal expectations, right? I should be X, Y, and Z. I should have this much money in my account. I should be married by now. My friends are all married with kids. People my age have a house. Society says I'm too old to get married now. Then we have other voices, like the voice of our own personal expectations, like who I thought I'd be at this point in my life, what I thought my 5-year plan was going to look like. And here I am 5 years later, and I'm like, what, right? Or this identity that I've built around myself and who I think I am or should be, or this image that I created years ago or back in college or given to me by my family of what success is meant to be. And so here I am thinking I'm living a successful life, and something is feeling off. And then there's this other voice that I coach my clients around, because this is our inner wisdom, our higher self, I like to call them, that typically gets buried. It gets buried by all of the other noise, the other conditioning from our family, from our friends, from social media, that we lose connection to our inner wisdom. And our inner wisdom and our higher self is this part of us that knows already, this part of us that doesn't need anything outside of ourselves to be complete. And so it's this part of us that knows our truth, that knows like who we are at our essence. There's no striving that needs to happen. Our higher self is that part of us, that voice, that wisdom that knows what to do no matter like who's watching or nobody's watching. It's this part that just deeply is connected to your intuition and how to choose. So when I work with my clients, a lot of the work we do is around building this relationship to our higher self, to our wise self. And we're using mindfulness as a tool to connect inwards, to find that voice, to build a relationship with that voice, to let that voice get louder and stronger so that we can live from this place of confidence that we're living and trusting in ourselves and know our truth so we can say it out loud and follow through with action. And when I think about high achievers, again, there's not this fear that I'm not capable to do X, Y, and Z. It's like high achievers feel very capable of going after whatever they want because they've been successful in their life. They have the track record. They've gotten the grades to go to that great school and get those great internships and jobs and graduate school and build a beautiful life for themselves. But again, underneath, there's this feeling of, am I doing life right? And there's an enormous amount of pressure that comes with this question because it's not about fear. It's really about, what if I'm going to waste my potential? Like, I know I'm so capable of doing so much. And what if I'm not doing enough? And what if I'm wasting my potential? And that's part of why it can also be really hard for this type of person to rest, because rest feels wasteful, right? Rest doesn't feel deserving enough of life that they're living, and they're running at like such a high intensity and high speed. And so this creates this, am I wasting my potential? Creates an enormous amount of pressure. Because every time there's a choice point when it comes to going after that career or dating or buying that house or making that financial investment, there's a conversation of, what if I choose wrong? Because every choice feels so permanent and worth and heavy and so weighted. And anxiety can build here because there's a sense of, I don't trust myself to make a choice. I feel very capable in whatever choice I end up making, but it's the act of actually knowing and trusting and going for it and being able to wade through that uncertainty of not knowing the outcome of the choices we make. So I want to share with you a few different practices to incorporate into your being to support you resting back into connection with yourself so that you can find alignment instead of being trapped in this place of needing to arrive to that next stage of life and hoping that that next stage actually brings you peace and success and fulfillment. And instead find it right here before you even make the choice. So the first practice is something I talked about a little bit on Instagram. So if you haven't checked out that reel, feel free to do it. But instead of getting trapped in this, am I choosing right? Like, am I choosing the right partner? Am I choosing the right apartment to rent or to buy? Am I choosing the right job? Instead of asking that big question that starts to, like, even if you say that out loud, like, notice how that feels in your body. When I say that out loud, am I choosing right? It makes it feel like there is a right choice, and it makes it feel like there's a wrong choice. And it creates this thinking trap of black and white thinking that can spiral up anxiety and disconnection with ourselves. And when we ask, am I choosing right? We're also opening our eyes to look around at those different voices and norms around us. And we'll talk about that in a moment in more detail. So instead of asking, am I choosing right? I welcome you to flip the script and says, what feels true for me right now? What feels true for me right now? And so this invites you to pause and tune inwards and ask, what's the best choice for me right now? And notice how that puts your attention inwards to listen to your wisdom instead of starting to scan the external world for signs and signals. The more you can be asking yourself, what's my truth? This is the place where you get to build trust with yourself. And this is where confidence is built and born and grows. The second practice is a journaling practice. So I mentioned that there can be 3 voices that we hear most prominently. And so I welcome you to grab your journal, and instead of getting lost in the thoughts in the mind that can contribute to some spiraling, to a lot of overwhelm, maybe can even activate your overwhelm archetype. If you haven't taken that quiz, it's a free quiz. You can do that at wadeworld.com/quiz. And note, make 3 columns of what society is saying, what ambition is saying, and what my higher, wiser self is saying. This practice is so powerful because it helps to untangle you from the thoughts that you're having. So in the society column says, you can write down, okay, society says I should have a home. I should be married. I should have a 6-figure job. I should know my life's purpose. Maybe the ambition column says, I need to maximize every opportunity I get. Don't waste my potential, right? Keep pushing, keep hustling. Don't slow down. And then maybe you notice your higher, wiser self says, I actually don't need to rush here. I actually need rest right now. I'm craving being creative. I'm wanting a slower season. I love my work and I love being stimulated, but this job right now is not my place. So the intention with this exercise is to slow down and again, take your gaze inwards, start to untangle what's yours, what's theirs, what's a different story. And when you do this, you will be amazed at what you start to learn about yourself and maybe how some of those thoughts and beliefs that you've embodied from society or from your expectations are actually running the show and making you make decisions that don't feel right, that aren't your truth. Another really powerful journaling prompt is to explore this question of what is success? How do I define success? And what is enough? And when you get clarity on success and what is enough, you can start to release some of that extra pressure because you're naming what actually matters to you and you're naming some metrics and clarity about what you want and what feels meaningful to you. When I have my clients do this exercise, it's really interesting because they start to realize, oh, actually, I think I want all of these things. But when I really boil it down to it, this is just what's really important. And it doesn't mean the other things aren't still important, but the aspect of striving for it and putting pressure to get it isn't where their energy and focus actually needs to go for the time being. So instead, in this moment of time, when you think about what success looks like and what's enough, they get to really get clear on it's this. Success means this. Success means having this job that makes this amount of money and having a healthy, happy marriage and having health within my body. And when they recognize that, it's like, okay, that's where they can put their focus and energy. And so it's less about hitting these milestones, and instead it's helping them connect to what they actually realize is success versus what the external world has told them, or the different voices or the conditioned parts of them. So I welcome you to pause with me here and think about where in your life are you getting caught up in this question of, am I making the right choice? Or maybe you made a choice and you're reflecting and ruminating on it, like, did I make the right choice? And as you're sitting with that question, if you're noticing the anxiety starting to bubble in the body because there's this uncertainty and disconnection from yourself, I welcome you to come back to these 3 practices and ask yourself, which one feels the most beneficial for me to explore this next week? And then I also welcome you to think about, what practices support me connecting to myself? What practices support me coming home to myself so that I'm listening and feeding that connection to myself? For some, it might be a meditation practice. For some, it might be running. For others, it might be journaling. For some, it might be walks in nature alone. Whatever it is that you need, prioritize it. Prioritize that connection, because that is going to help you feel a sense of sturdiness in the yeses and nos that you make. And it's going to support you feeling enough as you reach each milestone of your life, feeling that sense of gratitude and content, knowing that you are right where you're supposed to be. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Center in the City podcast. I would love to hear what's coming alive for you, what's resonating about this episode, what insights have you gained about yourself and your own life. Feel free to even share what you're wanting more of, what would be helpful for me to continue to explore in this podcast as we reach the 300th episode. So whether this is the first time you're joining us or you have been a consistent listener, thank you so much for helping us get to this point. And I can't wait to keep connecting with all of you through this platform. So thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this episode. And until next time, stay centered.